Hey, welcome to the Future Seller Seminar. I'm Mike Tanner, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I sound like Barry White. I got a little sinus thing going on with some fall allergies. However, I'm feeling a lot better than I was last week. Normally I like to do these live every single week. However, last week we did the pre-recorded version because I sounded awful, and you guys don't need to hear me like that. So today, we're going to be covering the 9.5 things you as a seller need to know. Now, as you're aware, because this is all over the news and everything else, it's over-exaggerated in the news, by the way, as is everything these days. The housing market has dramatically shifted. So here are a few things that you need to know to do in order to get your house sold in a timely manner. Houses are still selling. Now, here's a scary statistic. Over 90% of realtors, this is from the National Association of Realtors as of this morning, over 90% of realtors only sold 6 or less houses in the first 6 months of this year. I don't know how these people are still in business, but I'm fortunate I'm in that 10%, and our team is rocking and rolling. We've got some very aggressive fourth quarter goals that we're well on our way to hitting. We have several under contract right now or pending in escrow, whatever terms you like. And then we also have about 6 or 7 houses coming up. So my point is, and this is not a part of my normal script or anything, make sure you're hiring a realtor that actually is in business and doing a good amount of business, because like everything else, business is a habit. And if a realtor doesn't know the rule changes that are going into effect, there's some in the Pacific Northwest for the RMLS that's going into effect even in the month of October. You need to know about those. And more importantly, your realtor needs to know about those. If they don't know what I'm talking about, personally, I'd recommend you look at another team or realtor. We'd be happy to apply for that job. Now, let's jump right into it today. Why do this seminar via Zoom? It's because most of you are incredibly busy people. And unless you're that one guy that just sits scrolling on Facebook all day long or Instagram or whatever, but most of us are very, very busy people. And so the majority of you that have watched this have kind of caught snippets of this every other week or every week, that kind of thing. You'll dive in and out. Our average viewership is about 25 people for each one of these that I do. And so we want to make sure that you're able to view all of it as much as you want to. The recordings only last for about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So I like to re-record them to make sure you're getting very fresh information as of September 20th. So pricing. This is the number one thing you need to know and get right when you're selling a house is pricing. Can't say it enough. If you get nothing else right in this, make sure you get pricing right, because if you price it too high in this market, we are rapidly shifting back towards a buyer's market. A balanced market is about 5 to 6 months worth of inventory. We're at 3 months right now. And that's really kind of a national average. We were just about 8 or 9 months ago under a month. So you can see how rapidly that inventory is rocketing up, and you need to be ahead of the curve on pricing, because if you're priced too high, buyers are not going to give you the time of day anymore. If you're priced too low, it will create a feeding frenzy at best, which is horrible, by the way. At worst, it's going to create an atmosphere of, oh my gosh, they're trying to dump this. What's wrong with this place? So you need to make sure that pricing is accurate. I normally rely on something called a total market overview report. However, these days, we're having to go with the active and sold comps, and I'm having to reprice properties week after week because we're not getting accurate numbers otherwise. That's how fast this market's shifting. So if your realtor is relying on numbers from the snapshot of 6 months ago, they are way out of touch. Number 2, you need to know the timeline on a transaction. Once you market your house, get under contract, both the buyer and seller agree on the terms of the deal, that's when the clock starts. Again, this is number 2 for those of you keeping track at home. The listing transaction timeline has got to be paramount in your mind, because if a buyer misses some of those milestones, those mile markers, those things that need to be in order, the contract's over and done if your realtor doesn't know what to do. So the first one is earnest money. Earnest money is like a deposit to show people how serious they are about buying your house. Well, that's in 3 days, 3 business days. Okay. So if that is not hit and the buyer doesn't deposit that money into escrow, well, you're out of contract and you have to start the process all over again. The second milepost or the transaction timeline is repairs. Repair negotiations are 10 days. Now you got to be careful because in some states it's business days, in some states it's calendar days. So you have to make sure more importantly, your realtor knows what are your state rules for where you're selling your property, because it goes by property address, not necessarily where you are. It goes by property address of what you're selling. Investors, please pay attention to that. Now it's after that the buyer's lender really takes over. An appraisal may be needed. In today's environment, appraisals are not getting waived very often. So the lender takes over. They do the finalizing of all the underwriting for the buyer. If it's a cash deal, it's the evidence of funds. This is where the lender and the escrow officer really take over and do their job. At the closing table, a lot of people think, hey, once I've signed off, I've closed on my house. That's not the case. Closing is actually defined as when the deed transfers from you as the seller to the buyer. That's when closing actually happens. So who officiates closing? Well, the county does. With whatever county you're in, that is who oversees the closing, because that's how closing is defined. And a lot of things can happen in between the end of the repair negotiations and when the county transfers that deed, because they don't transfer that unless everything is all in line. The buyer's additional funds that they have to bring to closing, all of that. So there's a lot of things that go into that. The third thing you need to know, and I'm starting to see this a lot lately as realtors are trying to save money. Number 3 is listing photography. And I'm talking about still photography. If you are selling your house and a realtor says, hey, I can just use my iPhone, run away, please, because that is not the appropriate form of marketing a listing. You're paying the realtor a lot of money to do his or her job. So make sure they're doing it correctly. Make sure that they're actually getting professional photography on your house to show that property in the best light possible. We have a couple of great go-to photographers. We're always acquiring more. I have to vet them first to make sure that they're up to our standard for what we want to do. The next thing that we need to talk about is video. If you really want to get that reach out to potential buyers, make sure your realtor does a professional video. A walkthrough of the house can do wonders for people that are thinking, I'm not really sure if that's the house for me. And once they see a good professional video walkthrough, they'll be able to determine if they want to see that house or not. And it garners more potential offers for you, at least showings. So people can get in and say, hey, maybe this isn't the house for me, but you know what? My parents were looking for a place just like this. So I've seen those videos forwarded all over the place. One thing that I would really recommend that you also do in the video is drone photography. It shows how close schools are, parks. And one thing that I didn't anticipate is the condition of the roof. People comment on the condition of the roof all the time. So you want to make sure and get that drone photography, get those great aerial shots so people can see what the property is like from a bird's eye view as well as on the ground. Another great thing, and by the way, this is number 5, is a 3D tour. You've seen Matterport, you've seen these on Zillow, Redfin Truly, you've seen them all over the place. But a great 3D tour can really help. Now, some people don't like them because they feel it's a fisheye lens, whatever. A lot of people really do like them though. And you can get to one room or the other. You can kind of spin around and take a look at what's going on in the property. And it really gives people another angle to view your property from. And the more eyeballs you get on that property, that's going to lead to more showings. That's going to lead to more offers, which will lead to a higher price if you have multiple offers. Now, the next thing you really want to make sure you have is MLS representation. The multiple listing service regardless of where you are in the country listening to this, is where all of your local realtors go to find properties for their buyers. So you want to make sure you've got really good MLS representation on there, and not some person that'll just do it for a flat fee and just throw it up there. They give you no help whatsoever. I'm talking people that will negotiate on your behalf, that are actually working for you, not just throwing your property up on the MLS for you. Okay, number 7, digital marketing. If you're not doing this, if your realtor's not doing this, you are missing a huge segment of the population. Typically, we get almost 15,000 sets of eyeballs on a property when we list it. Now, if somebody's not doing digital marketing, they're not getting that. I promise you that. We put it out on Facebook. We put it out on Instagram. We've even started putting it out on LinkedIn, and it really helps out a ton, all over the place as best we can, because we want to get as many eyeballs on that property as possible, right? Eyeballs lead to showings. Showings lead to offers. Offers lead to a higher price. That's the formula. That's how it goes. So digital marketing is huge. And make sure, by the way, that your realtor is actually paying for the ads. Don't just have them put it up there and share it with their family and friends. There needs to be a paid strategy behind digital marketing, because here's the thing. Otherwise, it's only the realtors, family, and friends that are seeing that. And if you're selling your house in Beaverton, you don't care that my cousins in Kansas are going to see that property or not. They're not going to buy it. If you're in Vancouver, Washington, you don't care that some friends of mine from Sacramento, California are seeing that property, unless they've expressed an interest in moving there, which is a long shot at best. You need to make sure that that property is digitally marketed properly within the area that you are in. In addition, you need to make sure that it's marketed from other cities where people are moving to where your property is located. There's ways of doing that. Reach out to me. We can talk about it. Number 8, transaction coordination. You want to make sure you have that. I walked you through the timeline of what a transaction is. You get 3, 4, 5, 10 properties at a time under contract as a realtor. You don't remember what you've said to who. It's really important to make sure that you have a transaction coordinator watching not only your back, but your realtor's back the entire time. Now, you can pay for somebody to do that separately. That's all part of our fee at Tanner Realty Group. When we do that, we want to make sure and give people the best experience possible. So we wrap that into our services, and we want to make sure that we hit all of those deadlines, because again, if those deadlines aren't hit, contract's over and done. It's over and done, and you may lose buyers if that's the case. Now, what turns off potential buyers? This is number 9. I always get asked this. What turns off potential buyers? What are they going to run away from? Well, I'll tell you, just like our political climate in America today, it's anything too divisive. I've walked into some places, no joke, they had a Trump flag in their house. Now, you know what? I don't care if you support Donald Trump or not. I could care less if you hate the guy, okay? A lot of people do. Whatever, doesn't matter to me. But the fact that you're putting a flag of a divisive political figure in your house when you're trying to sell it, that's just flat out stupid. You want to make sure and keep your home, the property you're selling, as neutral as you possibly can. Please. Because just like gray paint on a wall, right? These are actually beige. They look a little gray, but they're beige. You want to keep everything as neutral as possible. Don't get overly personal. The buyer needs to be able to picture themselves in your property when they're looking to make an offer. And they're not going to do that if you've got something advertising a hot button issue in your house, okay? Now, I promise you 9.5 things. If you've been around a little bit, you know what the half is, but here it comes. It's the one thing outside of pricing, by the way. It's the absolute one thing you have to get right to sell your property. And it's very simple. Clean your house. Make sure your house has a good deep clean and it smells like cleaner when people come in. Here's the reason for that. A lot of people will tell you, oh, fresh baked cookies, that's a way to go. You're selling a house in Portland, half the people are gluten-free. You've eliminated half your buyers right there. Don't do that. When I go into a house, man, I want the smell of old school pine sol. I want to know that that place is germ free. Okay. So when you go into a house, if it doesn't smell clean, you're going to have realtors, you're going to have buyers that automatically turn around and walk out. Even as a realtor, I've walked into some places when I'm showing buyers some houses. I'm like, man, this place stinks. Do you still want to look at it? This is horrible. So I would recommend a good deep cleaning. Hey, I try to keep these under 20 minutes, and we're currently sitting at about 15 and a half minutes. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a message over this video. Send me a message over the social media avenue that you're watching this video on. Would love to chat with you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.